Okay, let me just move the mic. Stuck right in front of me. And yeah, so as you know, you may have seen the shows on doing the charcoal, and I've just done a quick overview. I'm grabbing a handful. Hold on, this stuff that came out yesterday, and in the second burn. So, and it's hazelwood, all right. And I'm going to talk about why I prefer this. Not coming from a background of understanding about charcoal or buying charcoal. The only reason I made charcoal was because I didn't have any, so I made some. So it wasn't like I'd experienced charcoal before and knew what it was about and knew I'd seen it but never even used it. Never used it at all. In fact, I tell a lie. I did do one kind of old money thing years ago, and I can't remember if it was what kind of charcoal it was or where I got it from, or I think, to be honest, it was Janet had some, my wife had some at art college, in a little tin, a little sort of Chinese tin, Chinese like lacquer tin, and it was in that. I think that's where it came from. But yeah, that was the limit to my experience of it. And then 30 odd years later, I wanted to do it because of the practical space aspect. I couldn't store any more paintings, and didn't have any, so I made it. And then just that was it. I went through. Somebody asked yesterday about how many types of wood I'd used, or have I tried other wood? Yeah, 17 types, everything, including all the willows. But the willows near me, it's goat or crack willow. It's not. I don't think it's the willow you'd use for making, the stuff that leans over rivers. It's not like that. So it wasn't very good, and then went through everything, and then settled on using hawthorn. Initially, I used to use hawthorn because it was like graphite. It could sharpen to a point, retain a point, and it had a graphite-like feel. It could make black, but it would also act like a pencil, like a graphite pencil. And but it was. For some reason, I decided that I wanted something softer, or wanted to try something softer, and then moved towards using ivy, a vine type of thing. But no, I don't think it's supposed to touch ivy, the graveyard ivy stuff. I'm not supposed to. There's something about it, but I used it anyway. But it was dusty, and it just broke up too much. It was soft, but it had the thing that I'm going to talk about now, and it only revealed for the last few weeks or months maybe I've been using the shop bought stuff, and it does this, right? And you may not see there's anything wrong with that. There are things that around the mouth, great, and all the rest of it, but there's one thing that it does that I found I don't like, and I didn't really discover that until, or think about that until the other day when I did that one. So I did that yesterday with the Caran d'Ache. I think it was Caran d'Ache, Conti pastel pencils, and what that does is it emphasizes the need for line clarity. This is really my bag, but not. It's not. It's a bit, as I said, it's a bit obsessive. But anyway, and the line I can show you on this, and it's simply because it is a linear tool. It doesn't blend. It doesn't smudge. But the way that the line retains, the way it can retain the line without it becoming a softer line, is the thing that I want in the drawings that I do. So it gives it that kind of confirmed it's not accuracy, but it's like a confirmed intention. This is definitely where the edge of that eye is going to see. And I want you to look at that one when I'm using the shop bought stuff. Look at the lip. You can see on the lip there that it's not doing that. It doesn't retain the actual crispness of the line. It still works. It still looks like it, but it's very blendy. You can see how soft it is. It's very soft. And then when I thought, no, I'm going to go back to the homemade stuff. I did that. Now, this is on a different level for me. It might not be for you, but for me, that is on a different level to that. The purity and the definite way in which things like that, or even the shadow on the side of the face, it kind of retains the crispness. It doesn't get into that blurry thing which you see in here, which is fine. And I'm saying a lot of people like that, and it's it's perfectly okay. But I'm desperately trying to retain the crispness of the lines, as you can see. But it doesn't have the crispness. This is you can see the blurry kind of. I mean, not only does it break up, which is a big thing for me. When charcoal breaks up, it creates a tonal value. So it's just like printing. When a line's broken up into dots or lines, it actually creates a half tone effect. Charcoal on coarse paper, this is not coarse, but on coarse paper will do the same thing. So it breaks up and it impacts on the tonal qualities. That's the thing you've got to fight with anyway. But so I don't want that. But this doesn't have the clarity and the crispness of its line. It doesn't retain the crispness and the clarity of its lines. And then when you try to retain it, you get this sort of overly dark elements to it. Some of it, as you can see, is fine, and I would think that would be acceptable to most people to be able to draw hair like that, and the highlights and how they all work. Most people will be perfectly happy with that, more than happy with that. Personally, I'm not. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. So it's important that I like it. So I'd like the like crisp line definition of this kind of thing. So that's it. I mean, it's something that over what is it, 4,000 drawings plus, nice 4,000 plus drawings. It's something that has become more and more part of what I do. Not necessarily, as I said, not until I picked up the Conti I realized what I was missing. Sorry, the Caran d'Ache. No, it was Conti. Okay, I was right first time. Anyway, but it wasn't until I did that I realized what I was missing. So that's the first thing. I like the crispness, the definition, how it retains its line, even though you then apply some tone around it, it retains the crispness of the lines. I like that. It gives it that definition. It gives it the strength. Look at that. Look at. You probably won't say anything in this, but I look at that and think, well, that's everything that I want from a charcoal drawing. And it's not the usual sort of, let's make it round, let's worry about where the light comes from and all that kind of thing. This is pure response. But it's at the same time, the charcoal is doing the business. It's helping me to create something special. So I'm gonna draw with this now and try and illustrate what I'm talking about. Hopefully I've got some paper on it. Yeah, I've got some. And I don't know how to put this now. Let me just find a hole for it. There you go. Yeah, it's as I said, I'm going to draw this guy, and easy on the eyes, a little old fella with a flat cap. And I think part of the three dots thing, and just doing it now, because of the inconsistency of it, you kind of get a it's all right. I'm just going to get these elements in the right place first, and then I can explain more. But because of the inconsistency, you don't get it doesn't make you feel as though you're going to do it, sort of perfectly right. It's got to be in the right place, because it's not doing that. It's just letting you meander around. And if I choose to make something different, I talked about this the other day about people say, "Oh, you increase your densities, increase the tonal, densities." To this guy who was in the drawing, a fantastic drawing. But the problem was, and I talked about it in this reel just now, is that they were using, even if they were using a range of pencils, graphite, they had a short range, and consequently, the range was from grey to light grey, as opposed to from black to almost invisible, because without without applying technique, which is the hatching or smudging on one of those stumpy things. Without applying that, they'd never get the range that they were after. So not understanding that there is a range, a tonal range, even on this shopbox stuff, there's going to be a tonal range that you can use to explain form. But so this person didn't understand about the tonal. They were great, their draftsmanship was really good, but that's not, doesn't make them a great artist, if you know what I mean. It was just drawing, and people can learn to do that. But this person hadn't got the and this is a problem with teaching. This is, so they picked up somebody's how-to, and it didn't explain about, it's not just about being able to get things in the right place or being able to meticulously copy their hair. It's about this being able to capture the form with however you do it, with the medium that they're using, and therefore it would have been important. I mean, I'm not a fan of hatching, so, and I very invariably end up using random hatching, but it's the kind of thing that people would do, which is what this person, although this person had blended the thing to death, it was too smooth, and that was part of the problem. But that was them trying to make it look, to give it form. But the reason why it hadn't got form was because of this, ignoring this, the range of tone required to define form. You'll see with the circle drawers. The circle drawers do that thing, and then they do that. Here's the light coming from here, and then there's a shadow and all that kind of thing. Not quite sure what all that's about. I think it's to do with how the shadow, how a ball or spear would cast a shadow, And I remember doing all that when I was 14 at art college, and thinking it was great. Look at that! You can put a little white dot on the top of it. It looks like a golf ball or a billiard ball, And but that's following those kind of things are not, it's the knowing is not seeing. It's that kind of thing. So they didn't recognize what it was that would have made this thing have form, and primarily it was the lack of tonal range. So this is the thing with charcoal for me. This having this tonal range is it's almost like it is the critical thing for me. I don't really think that I could do what I do without having a tonal range at my disposal. So the other strange thing about this homemade charcoal is that it comes alive, and that sounds a bit weird, but it kind of gets warmed up, and after a while, I said this yesterday when I was drawing the girl. I think I did a video with that. After a while, I get used to this charcoal and the way it works, and it's the level of pressure required to create a certain density. I get used to that, and it changes with every piece, by the way. So you kind of have this permanent learning state as you're trying to get to grips with what this particular kind of charcoal will do, this particular piece of charcoal will do, and that is for me is part of the fun. I think that's part of the enjoyment, is that it almost like the charcoal reveals itself. It reveals its potential, its capabilities, and it's just a case of getting used to it. I know it's going to be like that. And what happens? That's the reason why I only use one piece right the way through, and it's and the reason why I do try and get so many out of one piece is because of that. Because I want that. Once I get used to it, I want to carry on using it without having to learn again, so to speak. I mean, the other thing about it is the peculiarities of working with a piece of charcoal. All this stuff I think is only relevant to, if you make your own charcoal, or if, I don't know, you get a known brand that is homemade or artisan, like, you know, that kind of thing. Maybe that. But if you're using chalkboard stuff, none of this is really relevant. I think there's some of the things about understanding about, you know, the tonal structure of it and using it, using the charcoal to sorry, I'm just thinking about this, but using the charcoal to in such a way that you're able to emulate, I suppose. I hesitate with things like that because at the end of the day, this is not about how well I can copy a photograph. And a lot of people look at this and, you know, they want that from it, and it's not what I do. So it's a different thing. If you want that kind of thing, there are lots of great artists on here. John Farinob is one of those that will give you complete detail on how charcoal should be used and, you know, how different charcoals work. So you need somebody like that. You don't need somebody like me who's going to talk about something specific like this. But for me, that, as somebody mentioned, you know, commenting on one about this making your stuff and working with the tools that you make, I think that's a wonderful thing. I think the Jackson's had a go at making paint, and he would still keep. He's made some, but you know, actually finding pigments and distilling the, you know, the pigments and drying it all out and all that, and took us all summer to do that, just to dry out the pigments that we'd found, and then turn it, you know, put it into oil and beeswax and all that sort of stuff, and then grind it in, you know, with the old piece of glass and you see it with the traditional artists doing that. So, and it's wonderful to do that, and then to paint with it, it's great. And I think that's what making your own charcoal's like. There's something strange about working with the tools that you've made, or something wonderful and magical almost. And it's good, but it's a bit of a, for some people it could be a bit of an obstacle. So I probably think that, you know, you just, as long as you're aware of the things you need to consider, I think you probably get away with using the normal sort of branded stuff. Although I'm not sure about compressed stuff. Although, you know, with the nitrums and all that sort of thing, and the people that use it, they're different kind of, they're out to replicate. So they're not concerned about the moment the line hits the paper is the moment that, for me, is the end. It's the end, the beginning and the end at the same time. And if that mark that hits the paper has all the life in it it should have in it, then I'm kind of going to chase it away by trying to be more smooth and more detailed and all the rest of it. But that's not the concern of people that were using, say, things like nitrum to make incredible realistic portraits, you know, faces. So it's a different thing. I just think you need to be aware of that. That's the thing. I wasn't aware of any of that, and because I got the results, I didn't care. You know, it wasn't until people started asking me in the courses about, you know, what if they can't make it, what should they use? And I'd got no idea about that. So it's when I started to buy different types. And I think I bought a pack of nitrum with the designated hardness to buy of soft. I think it said it was nowhere near soft, but it had soft on it. So, but I think they've got, you know, loads of different varieties of that. And as I say, people love that. So it's just what they get used to. And as I say, I'm not saying that it's no good. It's brilliant stuff, but it's not this. You know what I mean? It's not like this. Somebody said to me today about, you can get it off. You can get grape, as they refer to it, grape or vine charcoal from AliExpress, and it's cheap, and so why would you bother making it? Well, and unless you've made it properly, you'd never appreciate why you bother making it. I think the answer wouldn't ask that question if you've made it properly. It's not it's not in the same league as this. So, but that is, you know, it's one man's meat, another man's poison sort of thing. You know, if that's what they think and it works for them, that's cool. I think that's probably true of all mediums and materials. You know, somebody will say, I prefer Winsor & Newton watercolors, and others might prefer a different brand, you know, and if you've got the luxury in order to, to be able to experiment and find the medium that works for you or the brand that works for you, then that's great. I think that this is the making charcoal for me was a consequence of necessity. That thing. So and I couldn't afford any, all that kind of stuff. The paper thing's the same thing. I never really spend any money on paper. I think that's a hangover from the watercolor days. Paper I spent a fortune on paper, and which only added to the pressure that I felt, the self-doubt and all that. What happens if it doesn't work? I wasted all this paper, and I'd buy it only in one sheet, one sheet at a time because it was that expensive. But so I've never really thought about paper that much. I've never really thought about in terms of this. It's just been about just cheap paper and the homemade charcoal. And this is really cheap paper, which is one of the reasons why it's not black. It's grey. You can see it's quite grey. I can get to a certain density, but it's not going to be a black density. So looking around to see if I could show you one, but it's okay because I've got a range. It doesn't really matter if it comes from not so black or a brownie black to light. As long as I've got a range to work with, I'm okay. And I'm seeing a lot of the things that I like about charcoal happening, or I like about this charcoal happening in this. A lot of the there is that I mentioned about the line clarity thing. There was a lot of that happening in various parts of it. I'm also using what might refer to as loose hatching to confirm tonal values, which is another thing that I think that as a consequence of the way I draw, it's like a that's going to be that tonal value just there, and then I end up leaving it. It's sort of, well, if it's doing it, then it's stopping, sort of thing. It's not, why do I have to suddenly make it very all blended and smooth, and that again, because this I don't need to do it with this charcoal. It doesn't, the way it's doing that kind of thing. I don't know whether or not I'm going to get into the shirt in a big way, other than the fact that I just needed something to sit the head on. But I don't know whether or not it's going to be a lot of work, to explain what's going on. Most of the time, the neck thing is just the shoulder thing is just to explain why the head's the way it is. It's almost like you want to put it on a plinth, you know what I mean? It sort of sits on something. I think also there's the my drawings evolved around this kind of thing. That's one of the I think one of the influences that we have. We you use a mechanical pencil, you kind of get used to working with a and your drawing evolves around that. So that's what would have happened with this, or has happened with this. It's still going to be about my adaptation, if you like, of what I'm doing. Although I didn't adapt anything because I couldn't do it in the first place. But it was that. It was the charcoal was a controlling factor in my development. And I think also the things I talk about with the mindset stuff, I think a lot of that is a consequence of having, working with homemade charcoal, because it's of its unpredictability. So it wasn't like I was going to draw it like everybody else or as good as everybody else or whatever. It wasn't any of that, because I couldn't do that. I couldn't, the medium wouldn't allow me to do that and to be as smooth and to be as, representational. Like John Farnoff, I mean, his work's amazing. You can't not admire what he does. And at the time when I first started, that's kind of what I thought charcoal was about. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because this wouldn't allow me to do it. And if you look at John's equipment, it's immense. He uses all kinds of charcoal and devices. I ain't got any of those. So what am I going to do? That was the thing. So I just got these burnt twigs. So it kind of then became more about the motivation of it, the thinking behind it, all that sort of stuff, and what was really important. Was it really important that I made photographic replications? No, it wasn't. And then all of a sudden, as I said, this mindset thing took over, and I'm set free. I'm set free to do it however I want to do it, and however it turns out, whether the charcoal's getting in the way or not. And most of the time, it's not in the homemade stuff. It is what it is. It becomes what it must become. It's kind of the, all portraits have their own destiny kind of thing. So as I said, the charcoal, it's limitations, on what I can do are all part and parcel of my evolution in terms of doing this, and kind of a perfectly justifiable path. When I start talking about the mindset stuff, it's almost, you can see why I talk like that, because of the medium and the materials were not allowing me to be anything other than that. I've got to find another way to express myself, and because the medium and the materials that I could afford, had access to, were just not allowing me to be what I thought I should be. But it turns out I wasn't supposed to be that I thought I should be. But I didn't understand. So the charcoal knew. It's like the charcoal knew that I wouldn't. It wasn't where I was supposed to be. So I ended up doing this, as I say, much more mindset kind of approach to it, and I'm better for it, because everything's affected by my mindset. The choice of subject, the amount of, how I approach it, the connection stuff, the emotional connection stuff, all of that is affected by my mindset. So it was meant to be, and consequently, the resulting attitude to, the more freer acceptance stuff meant that I could just keep doing it. There's no limitations. I just keep, I'm not inhibited by anything. So I don't sort of get stuck before I start a drawing or anything. I struggle to find references. That's the thing. And the reference thing is twofold. It's, first of all, it has to have sufficient structure. I mean, that's not detail. It has to it has to. I'll find structure in it if there isn't any, but it has to have a basic structure, that I can accentuate. But the other thing, the main thing for me, is that I have to feel some emotion towards it. Like I said about this guy being a sort of a likable character, a nice to draw, kind of subtle, calm face. So I've got an emotional reaction to it. So that's everything. So it doesn't matter what I'm looking for, even when I'm just looking for mechanical aspects to it. This has to be that underlying thing of I'm emotionally moved in some way. What moves you to paint it is what I think. You've got to recognize that. I think that was Robert and Rice said something, and retain that and remember what it was that moved you, and that's the criteria. It's never about that's got not enough. Anybody got a high HD? People saying this, don't they? Anybody get HD references? Why would you want HD reference? Life's not in HD, as far as I know. Anyway, I just remember looking at those 4K monitors, those Sony ones, in a local TV store, and thinking that's not real life, but apparently it is. So then people get used to seeing it in HD. Apple produce tablets that are more real than reality. What's that? And that's the slogan. Everybody buys it, don't they? What's that? No. But yeah. So as I say, I think it's, as you can see, as this develops, one of the things that I was talking about in the short was this ability to apply charcoal with no effort, and I think most charcoal would do it. It's just that because a lot of the time when I'm adjusting the tonal values, the charcoal is just drifting across the surface, and I need it to just put the tiniest amount of charcoal on it, just because strangely enough, even though it's quite raw, there are very subtle nuances that define the tonal values, and as I say, it may not appear that because they look like it's just a scribble, but for me, there are things that I need to be able to do, and one of the things is to be able to put a very light on there, for instance, a very light layer, for want of a better word. I don't like that word in this. I don't think there's something that I've ever considered layering, but people do that. I mean, I can't get my head around how people can use fixatives between different stages of a drawing. I don't know how that works. I think these people are only working to produce, photo replica stuff, and they've got an established process, which is something that I kind of shy away from if I can help it. I don't really want it to be a process thing, because I'll finish when I finish and I'll start when I start. It's that kind of thing. I don't think, I'm going to start here and end up there, and by the time I get to here, I should be there. And that's not, for me, it's too much of a responsive thing for me. I can't really get into stages. I think there are stages to what I do, and I've told these people about this before, about, find the locations, find the shapes, build the shape with tone, and then, build the tones. It's easy, but it's not what you call a sophisticated process that some artists do have. But yeah, I hopefully not rambling too much about the reason why I like working at home with charcoal and the benefits that it brings. But it does have a certain quality. You can see now with this. I mean, I've got to fix the hat for it, just to bring on the form a little better, because it's very flat. You see how flat it is. But the face is certainly building, and despite all the the meandering, the wandering, I think I draw like a talk, sort of. I wander all over the place, and despite all that, it still has the right feel of the face, and that's the most important thing. And above anything else, accuracy and all that doesn't matter. It's got to feel like the face. If it feels like the face, you've done the job. If it looks like the face, you've only done half the job. It's you know what I mean? It's one of those kind of sayings, I suppose, that most people, it's lost to most people, because most people it's just about replication, and that would probably suit charcoal more than anything else, because you look at the quality of the photographic replication that people do with charcoal, and it's just off the chart. But there are some people that don't follow the photographic replication thing, and are quite famous. I was going to say some of the Chinese guys, but there's a feel about the Chinese drawing thing that seems that all Chinese artists do it, which is contrary to what being an artist is. If everybody does it that way, Well, I don't get the, an artist must have a unique voice, surely. The difference is what makes you special, not the similarities. So whilst there's all these Chinese guys, they really can chuck the charcoal around with incredible accuracy, incredible skill, but it's just boring. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude in it or anything. I don't, I still think that some of them are amazing in what they do, but there is a certain safety about what they do. That's another thing as well. I think that the homemade charcoal is unsafe. You know what I mean? Unsafe, unpredictable, and that's kind of where the rush is. It's where the adrenaline is for me. I'm an adrenaline junkie when it comes to charcoal. It might not work. It might not make a mark that's dark enough or whatever. It might just decide to become hard and say, oh, it might just become soft. It's all that kind of stuff. And I like all that. I like the risk, the risk that it might go wrong, which is probably the opposite of most people who would not. They like, certainty and predictability. Again, why you probably buy charcoal and not make your own. So I think I'm just about done, and I'm rambled enough. If you've got any questions about making your own charcoal, let me know, and comment below or whatever. And I've done a video. I'll link to that. What I did yesterday. I'll link to that below, so you can just see how it became. I haven't got the bit about cutting down the trees, but I think you've worked that one out yourself. And yeah, I'll catch you later. I've got a lesson today, so I'll get that done, and then I'll be back on again because I'm pre-recording the lessons, and it's part of the membership thing. So do not become a member. I don't want to continue with the membership thing. It's just not. It's not how I want to do it. So don't sign up. I keep meaning to, the video that introduces the membership thing. I keep meaning to change that and say, for goodness sake, don't sign up for this. I'm trying to get people who've already signed up to stop, to cancel the membership, but they're not listening to me. So I'm going to tell them again today. Please stop paying. Cancel the membership. Stop paying, because I don't want to keep doing this. Anyway, right. I'll probably catch you later. As I say, I've got the lesson out of the way. So that's it. I think it's turned out all right. I quite like the things that have happened to it. I'm going to fix some of the tonality things, the balance, as I refer to it, like that, and yeah. Something that needs a bit of, but you can see the shaping's coming now, can't you? I think it definitely wants to have a round, clear defined round edge. Whether or not it's going to have something on the back of it to help define the edge at the top there, I don't know yet, but it might do. Right. So I'll catch you later.